This unusual event that everybody here basically is an investigator, or at least has a degree of interest that's a little bit greater than what you might typically see at an average event. So I've had almost everyone in the room has done some investigation of one kind or another. So with that in mind, I tried to put together a presentation that looks at what all investigators face, some interesting things. And if you're a nerd, you probably know what Schrodinger's cat is. Okay. Most nerds know what Schrodinger's cat is. If you're not nerdy enough to have ran across Schrodinger's cat or just had bad luck,
Big Bang Theory told me what it was.
there you go. That's the first place most people know it from. It was originally a thought exercise. It wasn't really meant to be a really serious thing, other than it had the point of pointing out some flaws in the thinking of physicists at the time. And the original experiment was basically the idea that you had a sealed box, there's a cat inside the box. To just give the simple version of it, you don't know whether the cat is alive or dead. And the only way to know if the cat is alive or dead is to open the box. And hence you get Schrodinger's cat. Well, Schrodinger's Bigfoot is, you don't know it's Bigfoot. I mean, you may know personally if you've seen one, but we as a culture do not know whether or not Bigfoot exists. Now, until that box is open, in quantum physics they like to call it a dual state. So really in some ways Bigfoot both exists and doesn't exist at the same time, because nobody has opened that box. No one can point inside the box and say, yeah, there's Bigfoot. So we work in an area and do research in an area that's a paradox. Paradox I'll go with the third description because it's the shortest one. A situation, person, or thing that combines contradictory features or qualities. We all know that. We all have heard the usual arguments. I don't know if I made up the word, but I like it, Bigfootery. We've heard all the usual arguments in Bigfootery about, well, no, you can't have a breeding population of a large mammal over a continent-wide basis, you know, those sorts of things. And while it's true, it is actually true. The paradox is you have to be able to reconcile that with the fact that we have thousands and thousands of people out there that are seeing something. That's where I get the idea that you have a Bigfoot paradox. Now, before I get too much further, James Hendrix, my wife's Carrie Hendrix, my daughter Brianna is probably wandering around here somewhere. She hasn't run off. My son-in-law and other daughter, Tony, are here. We're part of a group that makes up a total of somewhere around 12 people. East Texas Unusual. We're very informal. We're not a very strict organization. We do it for fun. We try to be as scientific as we can, but in truth, the real reason we're out there is we enjoy getting out there and doing research. East Texas Unusual, we have two teams. We have a paranormal team and we have a cryptozoology team. I head up the crypto team and my wife heads up the paranormal team. So if you get, you know, ghost in the house or something, call us. But basically, if you want to find us, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/East Texas Unusual. But anyway, enough of my brazen plug for our little group. We don't really get out a few times a year. We do maybe 2 or 3 events, and we do research about once a month or every other month. We'll get out in the woods, do a little bit. Okay, confession time. I wrote all this down so I wouldn't forget it. Now, I divide my thoughts on Bigfoot into 2 halves. There's 2003 and before, and then there's after 2003. Okay, so I might have to read a little bit of this to y'all. Okay, I like the term wood ape. I really like that, North American wood ape guys, because I think that the term Sasquatch and Bigfoot and all that you have so much weight that's been attached to it now. You know, if you say, oh, I'm a Bigfoot hunter, the first thing you get is a funny look, you know, from people. But if you say, well, I'm researching wood apes, you know, they pause for a moment. They're still going to get confused in a couple sentences from that point. But they kind of pause for a moment and actually listen to you rather than just turning the volume down at the moment you say Bigfoot. So I found that term wood ape is kind of good. The other thing you can do if you're actually out in the woods, oh, what are you doing out here in the woods? You know, as Mr. Park Ranger is looking at you. Wildlife? You know, those kind of things. So there's a large element of that. I grew up out in the woods, haven't saw a thing, haven't seen a thing. Okay? So if anybody had asked me, well, for instance, my mother was a Bigfoot believer. My grandfather he lived in Bowie County, Texas, which is pretty much west of South Arkansas. My great uncle worked for Texas County Police Force. He was involved in the search in Valley back when it happened. He later became chief of police. Okay, my grandfather would talk about the wild man and all that. I'm like, well, Grandpa. You know, sure, Grandpa. And you know, my mother believed in it because my grandfather did. My father and I would kind of poke a little fun at her and all that. Developed a strong interest in science because of my father. He spent his entire career as a biology teacher. He used to work for the University of Houston and the University of St. Thomas. He would do field studies, so I would go out with him. You know, as a little boy, he'd drag me along. And he was published in some papers by one of the scientists working with the Bakey that was doing some reptile research because he started out looking at alligator hearts first before they switched over to human hearts. So my father's strong interest in science led me to have a strong interest in science. So the other part of my problem before 2003 with Bigfoot is the usual problem with Bigfoot. Okay, science says there's no such thing. It can't be. You know, just show me the animal, where's my empirical evidence, where's it being cataloged, what's its scientific name. So I had a very strong bias against it because I've always had a strong interest in science. Now, related to that is logic, psychology, and reasoning. Y'all being investigators, I'm sure you've interviewed the occasional person, and you've listened to them, and you've gone, thank you very much. Appreciate the interview, you know, I'm going to head out now. There's people making general bad witnesses. Almost everyone you've ever talked to that works in law enforcement will tell you, people make really bad witnesses. So I had that working on my side. Prior to 2003, I would say, look, Mom, you know, because you, like I said, Bigfoot believer, you know, there's no science behind it, people are flaky, maybe they're all crazy for all I know. You know, I've never seen one of these things. I grew up in Polk County as a teenager, as a kid in the 70s, 80s. There's not a lot to do except get out and hunt and fish and get out in the woods. So I'd spend a lot of time in the woods. Never seen anything like that. The only thing unusual I've ever seen is probably a black panther. Okay? What people call black panthers, which is a whole controversy in and of itself. Which leads me to the next part of all this. The thing that broke my brain, I call it the spark, was my actual sighting that I had. Now we live about there. My sighting was right about there. It was just outside of the Big Sandy Creek unit of the Big Thicket National Preserve, just past the point where the Alabama Coshawty Indian Reservation comes into the highway there. I blame in two parts. I'm partially responsible for getting into Bigfoot because of Brianna. It's all her fault, actually. I'll explain the first portion first. We had gone to town. My parents were babysitting Brianna for us. This was November of 2003, roughly. My parents were babysitting Brianna for us. Carrie and I ran to town to get some groceries, diapers, formula, all that sort of stuff for Brianna. So we're headed back, and we get about to that point where I showed y'all on the map, and there's a cow pasture there. guy, he's a local veterinarian, literally just runs cows on it, just a big wide open spot. And I'm driving along, and if any of y'all have ever hunted much, I'm sure a lot of you have, there's a magic time right after sunset. You've got about 30 minutes there before it gets dark, maybe a little bit less. And it's still daylight in there. You know, in Texas it's still legal to hunt up until 30 minutes after sunset. It's a point in time when you see a whole lot of animals moving, stuff like that. I turn my lights on, I'm looking out for deer, and I see out of the corner of my eye something, just a flash of motion. And my first thought was person, because he was obviously running on two legs, headed for a 4-strand barbed wire fence about that tall. And he leaped it like a hurdler. I say he could have been a she. Like a, just flat out running. I mean, cleared that thing so hard that all of you been down Farm to Market Road. You know about how wide the clear, you know, the right of way is right there. He went from that barbed wire fence almost to the edge of the pavement in one single jump. Is how far he jumped. And he landed. I slammed on my brakes. I'm driving our little minivan, our little mom van, you know, that we've got now that we've got a kid, you know. No longer driving the Jeep that I drove for so long. So I slammed on the brakes because I am literally about to run over this idiot who just ran out in the road in front of me. So I'm slowing down the car as fast as I can. And he's running, and all of a sudden I had the realization that this is an odd-looking person here, okay, because this is all happening in a split second. He's at this point, he's on two legs, okay, he's running like this because he's landed. He didn't turn his head to look at it. He turned his torso to look at it. And when he came back forward, he went down on all fours and just hit it as hard as fast as he can. He cleared that highway just in a moment as I passed over the spot where he'd been, because he was already running as fast as you would see, probably the fastest human run. But when he went down on all fours, he was just right across the road. And basically everybody, first thing everybody asked me, what does he look like? We use my daughter Brianna for a prop, if Brianna will come over. At this point in time, Brianna is almost exactly the right height. Okay. Believe it or not, most people think Bigfoot is being real tall. I don't know if mine was a juvenile or if it was an adult that wasn't as high as most tall as most people report. It was Brianna's height with my width. So basically it's the same width as me, but only Brianna's height. His legs were the length of Brianna's, but his arms were the length of my arms. So if you can, in your mind, put a creature together that's like that, because the arms are like this, I mean, like needles. So, yes.
When he went on all fours, I guess it was really short.
Oh yeah.
When he went all the way down.
Yeah, he would be like this, wow, about that tall. Because the weird part was, I promised to abuse her in some way during the presentation. I'll probably bring her up again. By the way, you may have noticed we don't look a lot alike. This weekend is the 15th anniversary of our adoption of Brianna. So I'll get to the second half of why she's responsible for me Bigfooting in a minute.
What color was the animal?
Reddish brown color. Yeah. Yeah. Matter of fact, I looked, remember the screen I showed you just before now, before 2003. I watched orangutan videos for I can't tell you how long, okay? And, well, let me finish my description and I'll get back to that. Reddish brown hair, arms roughly the same length as the legs. When it bent over, it powered itself across the road basically on its legs, but it was also using its arms. So it was running its legs at almost like a 2-to-1 ratio. The arms were an assist, I guess, or a balance, because its back was parallel to the ground almost. Yeah. Oh, you have a question?
So if you watch those orangutan videos, you'll notice that they don't run.
Right. No, their runs are awful. This was fast. He could call it deer. we could have, and I'm not saying in a long run, in a long chase. Like if it were to have to chase the deer for half mile or so, I don't know if it'd caught it. But if it had been, you know, yeah, on a sprint, I think he'd caught a deer and drug it down. Caveman kind of face, real dark skin. I just turned headlights on. Like I said, it was right about sunset. My wife and I noticed different aspects of the animal because we looked at each other. Well, I may finish the story of what it did. Crossed the road, went up on the other side of the ditch on all fours. Okay, just hauling out. Gets to the other side and stops. And I wish I still had Brianna here because I'm not going to attempt to replicate it because I can't do it. It sat down on one heel and put its other leg in front of it, sort of like if you were to do this. If I do that, I won't get back up. But it sat down on its heel. It had its other leg bent, you know, its knee up. And it crossed its arms and it turned its torso again. That was the weird thing. It never did look at me by turning its head. It turned its whole torso and looked at me. By that point, I'm basically at a rolling stop, you know. And it looked at me like, what in the world is this? Of course, Carrie and I are looking at it going, what in the world is this? And so we basically have come to a stop. It stares at us a second or two, and then stands up and just, there was, at that point, it's been cleared since then, there was a kind of a Yopon thicket right there. Just mixed, little scrubby type stuff. It had stepped in there and was just gone in a couple steps. And Carrie and I looked at each other, didn't really even say much. I just looked forward, we kept driving. Yes.
How far was it when it turned and looked at you when you saw his face?
Y'all see where Big Dog is sitting? I'll use you for a prop, Big Dog. Not that far. Yeah.
In the first time?
Well, he crossed parallel or perpendicular to the road. So he was roughly the same distance almost the whole time. Big Dog might be a little bit further away than he actually was, especially at the point where I almost hit him, you know, because I rolled over the spot like a second after he crossed the spot. And goes in the woods, so Carrie and I go home, and I tell Carrie on the way home, I'm not even going to talk about this right now, let's go home, you write down what you saw. And I don't know why I had that thought, because I rarely really get it together that well. So she wrote it down. I said, okay, now I'm going to tell you what I think I just saw. This was some kind of ape that ran across the road in front of us. She estimated the height and the color and everything else. We were pretty close. I mean, there was like this much difference in her height estimate from my height estimate. She thought she saw eye shine. I did not. I was looking at his arms because it had tremendously muscular arms. I mean, just
Lots of hair.
yeah, even through the hair. The hair wasn't necessarily as thick as it was long. I mean, if you were around for the 70s or watched old Davy Crockett shows, you know, the fringe leather jackets, his hair was swinging like that right under the arms. Right up to there.
What about on his face? Do you have it on his face?
You know, Carrie's the one who's looking at the face. Like I said, I'm concentrating on these arms that I'm thinking, God, this thing is strong, you know.
What I saw, to me, the head on it was just slightly pointed. The skin appeared to be dark and leathery. Very flat nose. The eye shine was
What color was the eye shine, if you don't mind me asking?
No, it was kind of an orange color. Keep in mind this was right about dusk. So to me it appeared to be kind of an orange glow.
No neck?
Not much.
Kind of like you ever seen a football player that's taking way too many steroids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about hair on the face? Though?
Yeah.
The hair on the face really was more pronounced to the lower face. Like I said, it actually appeared to almost have like a leathery type skin.
The flat nose, was it like a flat and wide nose, or was it like less of a nose and you could see his nostrils?
actually do. That is one of the key details I need to say. To me, it looked human.
Simian versus.
It wasn't like a gorilla where you could poke your fingers straight in the nose.
You know, in Boggy Creek movie, there was something like that. His nose was turned up.
Yeah, I didn't really notice that, but it had a more human nose than if you look at a gorilla head on, you can see down into the nose. But when he looked at us, cavemen.
Looked more like
Yeah.
a face.
Yeah, like a Neanderthal or something like that. Yeah.
Maybe a dash cam.
Yeah. Oh, what I would have given for a dash cam. Yeah, I'm still threatening to wire my vehicle up even now just because of it. So anyway, what did I promise I would come back to as soon as I got past the description? Anyway. Okay, so I go to my father. Okay, my father's got a degree in biology, and because I wait a week or two to do this, okay, because I don't want to go to him right now and say, hey, Mom, you know, the thing we've been making fun of Mom about for a while. So I go to my father, and before I can talk to him about it, he says, you know, I saw the weirdest thing this week. Seriously. At that time, he had already retired from teaching, and there was an elderly gentleman that he was helping take care of. And he was driving over to that man's house to take care of him. And in the exact same spot that crossed the road for us, within about a week of when we saw it, he saw the exact same thing cross the road. And I said, well, what do you think it is? Because, man, he's got a degree in biology, especially wasn't mammals. He actually, snakes were the main thing, lizards, reptiles, different sorts, what he worked with. He said, well, grade 8, but I'm not sure what kind of grade 8 because it doesn't match a grade 8 I know of. He said it wasn't a monkey, it was grade 8. His only variant on the description is he described to me it as local. That's the way he describes the thing he learned.
He said he jumped the fence too?
You know, I don't know. I don't think he did. I'd have to go back and ask him right now if he saw it jump the fence, but he saw it run across the road. And he was on all fours once again, running, and he said to him it had a loping run. Not precisely sure exactly what he meant by it, but
Loping in the full stride. It's just a it's not running hard.
Yeah.
It's just jogging.
yeah, he described it as just kind of loping across the road in front of him, and just on up into the woods. I think he may have crossed in the opposite direction for him. There's a fence there. There's also this corner where the fence ends, so it might have went past here or could have went through the gate. Either way, there's another woman that, as it turned out, the same week. She's since passed away, unfortunately. She lived there at Big Sandy. She also reported seeing it. I didn't learn that until I started. I didn't tell the story to anybody else hardly for years. But later I learned that there was another lady that had seen the same thing all up in about the month of November in that period of time. So it sort of broke my brain. I entitled it broke my brain because and I got to admit even now, because I think I say, I don't say on that page, but in some ways I still have a lot of doubts even though I've seen one. Because when you see something that's impossible, you got to try real hard to figure out why you mistook what you saw for something impossible. Which is why orangutan videos, that's what I promised I would go back to. Saw a lot of orangutan videos, kept watching them going, yeah, it's an orangutan, it's not really an orangutan. You know, watch another one, yeah, it's got to be an orangutan. No, not so much an orangutan.
If you saw it by yourself, you could understand your
Absolutely.
skepticism.
Yeah.
There's two of you. There's no skepticism.
That's the thing, they really. And I just seen it, I thought, I would have, had I just seen it by myself, I would have said, you know, maybe I'm going bonkers. I don't think I'm going to tell anybody about this, just in case they want to put me in a loony bin. But I've really got to watch myself and make sure I don't see other imaginary things. You know, but the fact Carrie was there, I went back and taken some measurements there, and unfortunately I didn't bring my notes on that. And these are all estimates because I estimated about how long it could be run across the field, and then across the road from the field. He was running about deer speed. Really.
So every time you go by there now,
Yeah, I do. Actually, we drove by it on the way here. And I actually looked, I don't know what Kerry did, but I looked over in the cow pasture and took a look at the cows, you know. Then I went on by. And that's the reason for me it's paradox. Because even now, I can only halfway accept the idea, but Kerry and I saw it together and it reinforces that. And my father saw it. And my father trained in biology, used to do a lot of animal studies, where they would paint little numbers on lizards and turn them loose and go back and re-catch them and track them and determine their territories. He's quoted in some published papers from the University of Houston. Held until recent years the world's record in one particular water snake that I had the privilege of being with him when he caught it. So the fact that he didn't say, hey, that thing's an orangutan, also reinforced the idea that maybe I just shouldn't dismiss this. Now, admittedly, it took me about 10 years before I came back around to doing the investigation thing, because Kerry and I kept pretty quiet about it. And the second part of that is the second part of what I told y'all about blaming Brianna for getting into Bigfooting. How many of y'all know Chester Moore? So after the sighting, even though I wasn't talking to people about it, Kerry and I started watching Bigfoot shows. Well, at that point in time, Chester Moore was one of the main people that we were seeing on TV. Because you're talking a little after 2003 by that point, you know. And so I got to recognize him on TV, and occasionally somebody would mention, Chester Moore, Orange, Texas. And I thought, oh wow, that crazy Bigfoot guy, he lives in Orange, you know. I thought that's kind of cool. So I had to go by Gander Mountain in Beaumont. I don't even remember now what I was buying. So I've got Brianna with me, I've got Kerry with me. I'm pushing Brianna around, at that point. We adopted Brianna in October of 2003. We had the sighting in November. Okay. And this is like a year after that, so she's maybe going on 2 years old by that point, probably not even that much. So I'm pushing her around in the buggy. Oh, she was 4? Okay. That's why I keep her around with you. So we're in Gander Mountain, and I look at Kerry and I point at look, is that Bigfoot guy? And Kerry's looking at him and saying, yeah, that's the Bigfoot guy. And I said, isn't that unusual? I wonder if we should say hi to him, or maybe he'll think we're crazy and get a restraining order. And so while I'm watching this marvel of seeing Chester Moore wandering through Gander Mountain, he looks over dead at us and gets real wide-eyed and goes running literally across Gander Mountain to me. And as he's getting up to me, I'm saying, aren't you that Bigfoot guy? And I'll never forget his reply. He goes, yes, but is that a Chinese baby girl? He was working, if y'all know any of y'all know Chester well at all, he adopted from China his daughter Faye. Well, at that moment, he was working on, they had not gotten their papers back in China yet. And he was working on their Faye's adoption. And so I got talking to him, we talked for a long time, because they were in the process, and he wanted to talk to somebody that we had just completed the process, I guess maybe 3 years prior to that. So we exchanged phone numbers, and I got to talking to him, and eventually I said, hey, by the way, Chester. So really it was with a little encouragement from him, because I talked to him about it. He said, if you enjoy it, do it. If you stop enjoying it, stop doing it. I kind of took that advice to heart. I said to myself, yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll do Bigfooting. We won't worry about whether anybody thinks we're crazy. It's led us down some strange paths. We ended up on Finding Bigfoot. I'll admit to that. Another television show, Killing Bigfoot, if you're Killing Bigfoot. We were on that. And some other miscellaneous things, little podcast shows and stuff like that. Let me see what my next point here was. Okay, back to the idea of the paradox. What happens when you see the impossible, which is kind of the dilemma that I was in. How do you reconcile the fact that you see Bigfoot with the knowledge that the breeding population of a large undiscovered primate on a continent-wide basis is impossible? I like that phrase because he used to use it a lot with Mom. You know, say, Mom, you got to be kidding. You know, you can't have a mammal that's this tall with a breeding population over an entire continent, and you know, not have some redneck have one stuffed in his living room, you know, like a bear. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's a very real dilemma. But yet, when you've seen the impossible, what do you do about it? You know. So which leads me to either every single witness and piece of evidence is wrong, or some percentage of that are genuine. Okay? Any amount above zero means that Bigfoot is real. Okay, that's the fundamental axis that all of Bigfooting turns on. If there is one real sighting out there, if there's one real piece of evidence, then Bigfoot's real. Now, I couldn't define you what real means, but we all have a general concept of what real is. We think of a flesh and blood animal as Bigfoot. But if any one of them, so either all of us, and by that I mean the whole community of Bigfootery, I think I made that word up. I may have stolen it from Jeff Stewart, but who knows. If either the whole community of Bigfootery is delusional, or this thing really is, there's something to it. I can't tell you what there is to it, but it's real. And for it not to be real, then all these folks out here, you and me and everybody else, have all simultaneously got to be wrong, or there really is something to it. And that's really kind of what tipped the balance for me. And sure, what if you do have 200,000 hoaxers out there? What if you've got a pile of 1,000 casts and 999 of them are fake? If one of them isn't fake, then that was made by a real animal. So any percentage above zero means we're working with something that's real. I decided not to really make a big old list of all the pros and cons because we've all run through them. I did a little interesting comparison one time. Most of y'all probably know where Polk County is. Livingston's the county seat. Polk County has roughly the same population density as the nation of Congo. We kind of looked up the population density of Polk County, found the population density table for countries, and did a comparison. And so not the jungles in Congo, but Congo on the average as a whole. And so on one side of that argument, people say, well, it can't be because you have too high a population density in North America. Well, there's some places in North America where the population density is almost zero. Now, that's not Polk County. Polk County's got a pretty decent population density, but even that is low because it's roughly equivalent to the whole nation of the Congo. So, we can list all those, but we've all heard them. We want to kind of take a look. In my opinions, what's one of the problems with Bigfoot research is everybody's an expert. You've probably seen a few on television or met a few, I don't know a lot of things for fact. Even my sighting, I can't present to you as fact. I can just tell you my story, because I can't prove I saw it. But, I've been investigating now for 15 years. Found far more questions than answers. I'm convinced the phenomenon is real, but I don't know the reality of the creature. Okay? I can't tell you that, it's a primate of this order or that order or whatever. I believe the phenomenon's real. People weren't making this stuff up. They're not all delusional, There's something to it. Okay? Now, How long have we been doing ETU?
Probably now about 4 years.
About four years-ish. Okay, I really went public locally with the Bigfoot thing about 4 years ago. We started doing ETU. I had people pour out of the woodwork contact me. Almost every conversation started the same way. Hey, if I tell you something, will you keep it a secret? Okay? And I had some local politicians, I had school teachers, law enforcement people, all sorts of people. And almost every one of them said, hey, let me tell you something that you don't ever tell anybody. And I had to keep that stuff confidential. And as a result, when they met their friends who may have had similar experiences, they said, hey, you know, call James and Terry and talk to them about that because they're interested in that sort of thing. At least in my opinion, the Bigfoot stuff kind of falls, evidence, testimonies, all that, kind of falls on a 10-80-10 split for me. About 10% of it, when I look at it, I go, you know, they might not have took their meds that day. Or, you know, they got a really active imagination or something like that. And about 80% of it is, yeah, you know, there could be something to that, but I don't know, you know, there's not enough detail. They're driving down the road, you know. One very good witness I had. Her and her daughter driving together, 4 deer ran across the road, followed by quadrupedal 8 chasing those 4 deer. Marvelous story. Absolutely marvelous story.
Two witnesses.
Two witnesses. Okay. But then again, it's like my story. It's just a story. You know, she didn't say, yeah, and then I hit it in the car and threw it in the trunk and here it is in the deep freeze, you know. She didn't say that. But still, you know, I can't say she didn't. And there's a really good chance she did. You know, so about 80% of them fall in that. And then about 10% of the people when you talk to them, you go, wow. You know, they might not have some physical piece of evidence in there, and they generally won't because who's planning on seeing Bigfoot? You know, hardly anybody ever does it on purpose. That 10% you listen to it and you go, wow, that's good. And that's what keeps convincing me that, remember that 0% I talked about before? That's what keeps convincing me that that number is bigger than 0%. Number 2. This was weird. I'm not even taking an informal poll here. Most Bigfoot witnesses have witnessed some other type of paranormal activity. I started asking that because remember, ETU, or East Texas Unusual, we do the paranormal stuff, we do the Bigfoot stuff, anything weird. If you've got a 12-foot, 580-pound alligator, you know, we're interested in looking at that. Now, mind you, not at the same time. You know, they kind of fall in that first 10% if they had it at the same time. And you can argue, you know, hey, what does that mean? Does that mean they're more susceptible to suggestion or something, and more likely to imagine this? Or does it mean they're more likely to notice it and less likely to dismiss it? So, even though your average skeptic would say, well, those people are more likely to have active imaginations, to misidentify. I get the urge to strangle people that tell me that Carrie and I probably saw hair. Okay. You know, that sort of thing. So my general idea there, my opinion, is that Bigfoot witnesses are people that are more likely to notice and recognize something and then not automatically dismiss it, rather than the opposite. My informal poll. Okay. How many of you think there's a real good chance that you've seen or heard something that could be classified as Bigfoot? So how many of you may have also had some sort of experience that could be classified as paranormal? Okay, that's almost a 1-to-1. And because when we do the ETU thing, when I've gotten through the interviews, I never like to lead with it. But when I get through the interviews, I always like to ask them, hey, you know, have you ever seen anything else from it? They usually think it's because Well, they're thinking I think they're crazy at that point. It's actually because I'm very curious. And I found there's almost a one-to-one relationship. And mind you, the majority of the people I talk to, there's nothing wrong with them. I mean, there's some pretty sharp, pretty observant people that I'm interviewing that I don't think there's any way they know that. On this
There was
side
a
of
key
the
word, observant.
Yeah. Okay, another thing. All education levels, backgrounds, incomes. One of my best witnesses, a guy I can't reveal anything at all about him because he's in too good a position to want, to be willing to take the risk of the word getting out of him being a witness. So he's afraid that it'll have financial or career repercussions. And at the same level, there's a guy that I know, little old man, lives on Social Security, probably gets $200 a month or something. He's not rolling in money by any means. Barely keeps his old truck going, He's got a story just like the other guy. So it spans all levels. You know the big tragedy every time. You know the tragedy every time there's a tornado. Where do they go? Not only that, they find that one person living in the trailer park put in front of the camera. That would be the bad representation. Everybody else there could have been perfectly normal, but they go and they find that one person that lived in front of the camera. That has not been the case. People all walks of life. I've been trying to get one of the sheriff's deputies for Polk County to let me interview him. He had a road crossing sighting. They had to take him off patrol. His sergeant actually called me with the report and said, "Hey, we got this guy. He won't even go out now." Because he had one run across the road in front of him. They put him on desk job for a while until he would agree to go back out on patrol. Shook him up that badly. There again, it's that paradox. It's that conundrum. There's actually a word for that I'll get to in a moment.
Is there a dash band involved in that one?
I don't think there was. I never got to interview him, and I guess I should have asked that question of the sergeant. The sergeant didn't volunteer, and I didn't think to ask it, to be honest.
Have you got a database of callers?
I have
They just
written,
leave out the certain things you can't
I
say.
have written notes, is all I have. I actually made a little form.
Locations.
Yeah, and at first we were very meticulous about
Yes.
that, and I got to confess that as time went on, all the sightings have a real commonality. Well, not all of them, but most of them. And so I got kind of slack in filling out the paperwork. But I do have a lot of them written down. Okay, road crossing and sightings while doing some activity outdoors, usually hunting. It's almost always hunting. Because most people are still, they're sitting in a deer stand. They're being silent. I like the fishing when you're out, it's spotted up. Most all sightings are either road crossings or some guy hunting. Which is really interesting if you think about it, because if it were purely delusional, then people would be having those experiences. Yeah, in Walmart, wherever. But not all of them, but almost all of them are road sightings or some guy out doing something hunting usually, typically. Number 5, misidentification. Okay, I have talked to people that I absolutely think misidentify something. Absolutely. But those don't make up most of the people I've talked to. Those people I've talked to, they didn't see a dog and decide it was an 8-foot tall grade 8. Very, very few, and we don't have a lot of bear. There's an occasional bear sighting in our area, but even bears, when they walk on 2 legs, they don't look real Bigfoot-like. Yeah, and they don't jump fences. They're not going to disappear all that quickly, generally. And if they do, they're running off like a bear on 4 legs. And you can see that they run like a bear, as they go on running. Okay, number 6. Number 6 is bad. I've actually had this happen to me. Had a guy send me a trail cam photo Admittedly, it wasn't a scripted. It was, because we're also, remember, at ETU, we're interested in all sorts of unusual wildlife pictures and stuff like that. And he sent me some coyote pictures. I really thought it was great. And I thought to myself, this is great. I'm going to post them on our little group, because this is great. And the more I looked at them, I thought to myself, I've seen this before. So I emailed him and I said, hey, are these from your trail cam? He emailed back, he said, yeah, these are my trail cam. Yeah. He actually told me they came from Signo, if anybody knows what Signo is. I said, okay, great. But I still got this in the back of my mind. Now, before I post these, I'm going to do the Google image search thing. I don't know if anyone knows how to do that. But did the Google, and I found those photos on Google. They were from, I don't know, Missouri or somewhere like that. They've been spread around a lot on the internet. He wasn't really hoaxing Bigfoot, but he was absolutely hoaxing. And he was sending me something represented as something that was not. And there are people that get a kick out of that kind of stuff. They just like to play jokes. It's the same people that like to play jokes on people at work and all that sort of thing. Let's see here. Okay, number 7. Since y'all are investigators, y'all already know this. Average person, average witness, is really reluctant to talk about it. And even Terry and I, even though we would, clandestinely is not the right word, but we would secretly, quietly do Bigfoot research, you know, because I'm still watching orangutan videos for a long time, you know. So we were reluctant, and finally, I guess I either got old enough not to care, or something broke in there somewhere. And I said, I really don't care. I'm going to let people know. And I'm really glad it did, because, I mean, it just opened the whole thing up where I had people contacting me to talk to. That had a lot of commonality with what I saw. Okay, number 8. This is one of the things that helps convince me that this may not be fake. And that is certain correlations. And if you think about it, go through Bigfoot sightings, almost all of them, I'm not saying all of them, but almost all of them are near water in a conifer forest. Conifer being trees that have cones, mostly pine. Could be cedar, you know, whatever. And if you break sightings down, you've got trees, and you've got conifer trees, and you've got water. And if it's purely people's imagination, why do, I don't know the exact number, so I'll make one up off the top of my head. Why do 99% say? I'm just making that up, by the way. It is a high number in the 90s, I'm sure. Why do 90-something%, in my estimation, of sightings occur near water, near mostly pine trees? Well, if it's a real animal, that's because that's their habitat. Now, if it's purely a psychological thing, people are going to be seeing Bigfoot in every other environment. You know, you may occasionally get reports of Bigfoot in the middle of the desert. That's definitely not the norm. And most all of them are considered suspicious, you know, when you do hear them. Okay, number 9. Have any of you ever heard of Berkman's Law or Berkman's Rule? It kind of blew my mind when I ran across this. I can use Brianna for another embarrassing example. This is purely a case of Berkman's Rule. Okay, Brianna's ethnic group. If you draw a line back along the latitude line from China, it passes through the middle of Mexico, okay? And what Bergman's rule says, the further north you go in the northern hemisphere, the larger the animals tend to be within a representative group of animals. Not always. Same reason black bears are smaller than polar bears, okay? Granny's tall for her people, and I don't mean Chinese people, I mean her actual ethnic group within China. She's actually about that much taller than average for her ethnic.
It should be this tall,
Yeah.
by the way.
But look at it. Now, can you guess where my ancestors probably came from? Northern Europe. Okay, now what's the difference between those two geographic areas? One is further north of the northern hemisphere, and what are northern Europeans known for? Being tall. As you get towards the equator, humans get shorter. Same is true of animals. Anybody who's compared bucks in East Texas to bucks up north, there is no comparison. East Texas deer are like dogs relative to northern deer.
I didn't want to leave it until
Well, you got white tail, and then you got elk, and you got moose.
Exactly. You get,
There's no moose down Hendrix.
Bigfoot follows Bergman's rule and Bergman's law. If you look at Bigfoot sightings, the height estimates get taller the further north you get. You look up in the Pacific Northwest, the average person is describing something 8-footish. But what's your typical skunk age?
6 foot.
6 foot. There again, you're headed south. You're getting into hotter climates. They think the reason for Bergman's rule is that larger masses protect you better in cold weather. And, I have an excuse. Some guy named Bergman. So, the skunk ape probably couldn't live as well if it were 8 feet tall, if it was living, say, in Florida. So as a result, over time, animals in that environment tend to get shorter. And you exactly see that in Bigfoot. And I'll go back to the idea that if it were purely a psychological phenomenon, then you wouldn't see that. Everybody you're talking about, talking to would say, oh yeah, he was 8 feet tall, and looked like Patty. Most of the descriptions I get, while they have general resemblance to Patty, they're more like what somebody in Florida would describe as a skunk ape. So all across the South, you're looking at animals about 2 feet shorter on the average, less bulky. Most reports are more aggressive. I don't think that necessarily ties into Bergman's rule, but that's another thing you notice when you start looking at reports. Southern Bigfoot tend to be a little more aggressive. Maybe it's a southern thing. I don't know.
It's the heat.
Yeah, it's the heat. I'd be mad if I had that. Yeah, if I was that hot. A lot of consistency in size. Here's number 10. I'll give you the best example I know of. Until I had my sighting, I had never heard of a Bigfoot running on all fours. And if you think about it, not ever, but think about in your mind of all of the most legitimate sighting stories you've heard. A large number of them all involve wood ape, skunk ape, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it, going down on all fours, especially in the south. Now, not so much in the north, but there again, if you were 8 feet tall, you might not have a tendency to crawl around on all fours a lot either, because you can already cover more terrain with your long legs. But if you look at least in the south, that's very consistent. And very few people making that sort of stuff up or using their imagination are going to think of Bigfoot running on all fours. And yet consistently, you're going to see that in reports. Okay, barriers to proof. This was probably too long given them out. I don't know, how am I doing for time? Does anybody? And if nobody's in charge, I'm going to keep going until y'all tell me.
Your audience doesn't hear.
We've been talking for about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Just keep going. We'll tell you when to be quiet.
The food gets here, that's it.
Oh, okay, yeah. When y'all leave me to go fix a plate, I'll stop. So because this page here is a little bit long. Barriers to proof. I put this page together purely because I knew most of y'all were going to be investigators. And mind you, this is my opinion. Because in Bigfoot related things, I don't personally believe I have a lot of facts. I have my own experience. Yeah, but that doesn't translate to scientific, imperial fact. So all I can do is tell you my experience. Number one, societal pressure. People don't like to not conform. You think about schools, you know, when some kid shows up with the newest tennis shoes or whatever, how long is it before every other kid in the school is wearing the same pair of tennis shoes? You know? People are societal. I mean, they're group animals. They love to imitate each other. And if you're going, hey, I saw this Sasquatch, and nobody else raises their hand, you go, oh wait, panther. It was a panther. How many of y'all heard that? That's one of the transitions in interviews, is the transition to panther or bear. Just like black panthers become otters in stories. It's a real strange phenomenon I can't explain. People don't like to be thought of as crazy. Everybody likes to be well thought of. And people are afraid to talk about it. That's a real barrier to proof being found. Because there may be some guy who was plowing his field and looked over the edge of the woods and thought, man, there's a dead bear in the edge of the woods. I'm going to go over there and, you know, break out the backhoe, dig a hole and shove it in so it doesn't feed my pasture. And he gets over and he goes, that looks like a big old lady. Nobody's going to believe that. And he shoves it in the hole. You know? I'm not saying that's a good example, but it's an example of that sort of thinking. Scientific doctrine, I'll put that in quotes. You know, growing up, I always thought of science as this thing where you've got this rigid deal where people are going, oh wait, we discovered a fact. It's time to change everything. You know? Well, really not the way it works. Things in science are cast in stone, partly for a reason. You don't want to run after every wild theory that's out there. But the problem is, in my opinion anyway, it's been drawn to the point where they've been unable to discover a lot of new things. So within the scientific community, institutionally accepted facts and radical change, institutionally accepted facts don't change a lot. They change really slow, which leads you to radical change. Basically doesn't happen. What has to happen is a slow migration. It's just like studying dinosaurs. You got a lot of people now who think that dinosaurs could have had feathers. People have thought that from the beginning. But they were over in the crazy corner about scientific theory. And then over the period of decades, slowly that became the accepted fact. The idea of Bigfoot is so radical that you're unlikely to see a change in the scientific community without radical evidence. Which is why, even though I fully believe that people have come up with good DNA samples, if I'm a DNA tech, I analyze the DNA and compare it to my database. I find a match in my database and I say, that's a cow. Because this looks like this. Well, there's no reference sample in DNA databases for Bigfoot. So the only thing any DNA tech can ever do is go, nah, I didn't match anything. So his response is, it's contaminated. Maybe if you're really, really lucky, he'll say it's something in the primate family, but you must have got some of your DNA or something mixed up in it. You know? Never are you going to see a mainstream DNA lab go, you know what, you found a Bigfoot sample. Part of that has to do with other reasons we'll talk about. Part of it has to do with the fact, did I put Big Dog to sleep? Part of it has to do with the fact they don't have a reference in the database. Academic resistance. People are afraid to put their career in jeopardy. Nobody wants to be that scientist that jumps out there and says, I'm out of time. I'm out of time. No guy wants to be that guy out that throws his career away going, you know what, I looked at some evidence and it's real. And then all of his colleagues go, come grant time, don't make sure that guy doesn't get funded. You know, nobody wants to be that guy. So there's a lot of financial pressure. Jeff Melker was one of the few examples of somebody with some actual academic credentials that's really stepped out there. And I suppose rightly reckoned that he was in a position to do that, and did it. But you see very few people that do. Psychological factors. You got fear of the unknown. People are afraid of things they don't understand. They're afraid if they acknowledge Bigfoot exists, maybe Bigfoot's going to come eat them or whatever. You know, people are just afraid of things. Cognitive dissonance, may not even be saying it correctly, plays a big factor in it. And that is psychological discomfort caused by seeing something that you consider to be impossible. And the best historical example I can give you is when some of the conquistadors pulled up in South America to invade one particular tribe. They led the chief down there to see the ships, and the chief looked out in the ocean and couldn't see the ships. So he didn't call his warriors together to resist the conquistadors. Because the idea that those guys were setting out there in those ships, ready to come invade him, messed with his brain so badly and caused him so much stress that his brain said, no, I must not do it. And he ignored what he saw. Same reason a lot of people die in plane crashes. Did you have a question? You know, one of the number one way people die that die during survivable plane crashes, is they never take off their seatbelt and get out of the plane. They get in a mental shock once they hit the ground. And, you know, somebody's over there grabbing the escape hatch and deploying the shooter, the little ramp or whatever. And everybody's rushing out and nobody notices, and 3 or 4 people are still just sitting there. They're in shock. And that plays a role, I believe, in Bigfoot sightings. People see stuff, but it's so radically troubling to them that they go, nah, it must have been a panther. Yeah, that's it. It was a panther or a bear or something. And that allows them to dismiss their sighting and not have that psychological stress and fear of being ridiculed. Tendency to normalize goes along with the other one. People like to try to look at situations and figure out the normal solution. That's good most of the time. You know, because when you hear a funny noise and you pull over, you go, I've got a flat, that's in your benefit. Because you feel that you just got a flat, you get out, you fix your flat. On the other hand, if you see Bigfoot and you go, nah, Bigfoot's not possible, so not Bigfoot. So you go for another. That normalization, I think, works against us finding Bigfoot. Number 5, every one of you can give an example of non-cooperation, lack of organization in the overall community, factions, self-interest. I'm sure everybody knows of famous cases in the Bigfoot community where you've had big personalities and conflicts and people not sharing things and stuff like that. And I think that's impeded the Bigfoot community a lot. One of the things I love about the little groups like this and meetings like this is it's the exact opposite of that. It's people getting together, coordinating, sharing some ideas, saying, hey, I had this idea, we tried it out. Seemed like it might work, you might want to try it out. That sort of thing, if any real proof is ever, I mean generally recognized proof. If it's ever found, it's going to be through that sort of thing. People who coordinate with other people and go, hey, you know, I thought about this idea, why don't I try it? And then somebody tries it and it works. And the other way I think proof will ever be found is somebody is going to accidentally generate a body. By accidental, I mean, they're going to be driving down the road and run over. Or they're going to be driving on their four-wheeler and see something laying in the edge of the woods and go, well, what's that big thing laying over there? And they're going to go, okay. Or somebody's going to be on a deer stand and they see something walk out and they panic, or not panic as the case may be, and shoot it. Now, I have mixed feelings about the shooting Bigfoot thing, but the reality is the most likely form of proof that's going to occur at some point is a body. Somebody in an 18-wheeler is going to be driving on some lonely road and hit one, and there you are. And I'm not saying that hasn't ever happened in the past, but I think all these barriers to proof may be working against us. There's a famous case where a guy hit supposedly a person wearing a fur coat, and then the person he hit wearing the fur coat gets up, runs off. They think maybe the guy's got head trauma, so they called in the K9 team to try to track him. He outruns the K9s. And then finally in the reports they say, yeah, some guy, he got hit by a car, but he ran away from medical attention. Well, when you get hit by a car and dogs can't catch you, you're probably not a human being. I think that case is from the 50s or 60s. One of y'all may actually know that. Okay, number 6. This is something that's getting better. Lack of scientific methodology within the community in general. That's getting a lot better. I see a whole lot of investigators moving towards trying to collect good evidence. They're putting together evidence kits. They're trying not to handle samples that they're trying to collect. They're trying to do things a little more methodically. You know, they're carrying casting material. It used to be they would just take a picture of it and moved on. You know? I listed several of those, but y'all know the move in general is going in a good direction right now. But in the past, I think it's inhibited finding good proof. Okay. I've got a good buddy of mine. His name's Cole Carter. He's a graphic designer where I work. He drew this sketch for me one day, and I described to him what Carrie and I saw. And this was his drawing based on my description and Carrie's description. It's pretty close. To me, the head was a little more conical, and the brow was a little less prominent. But that is awfully close to what we saw up there. Questions? Comments? Ideas? I think I have anything else. Not enough. If y'all have any questions, I guess that's it for me. I ended at 7:02, so I guess I didn't do too bad. Only went 2 minutes over.